Happy Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into Morning JOX here, our final show of the year 2025. Conrad Van Order and John Saber here with you until 7 o'clock when we will hand you off to McElroy and Kublick in the morning. But a lot to get to today. Kind of a weird with just the holiday schedule and all that. Kind of like a Friday today, if you really think about it. So we will, of course, as we told you yesterday, we're going to be off the next couple of days, enjoying the New Year holiday. Hope you are able to do the same, and then we'll be back on Friday. So instead of a reaction Monday, we'll have a reaction Friday, and instead of a whatever you want to call it, a final score Friday, we'll have a final score Tuesday today as we get ready for the playoff.
Tell me what happens Tuesday.
Tell me what happens Tuesday. I like that. That's good. So, yeah, we'd love to hear from you. 205-834-9450. Going to treat this like we would typically a Friday show during the football season. So that means we want to hear from you on that courtesy GMC text line, and you give us your score predictions for the quarterfinal round of the college football playoff, because you've got 4 great games to choose from. You've got Ohio State and Miami. That's going to be the first game tomorrow. And then on Thursday, you're going to have 3 great games, as you're going to have Alabama, Indiana, of course, Georgia and Ole Miss, and then Texas Tech and Oregon. And then there will be, after the next couple of days, there will be 4 teams left in the college football playoff, and we will be headed off to the semifinal round. But we would love to hear from you today on the GMC text line with your score predictions. We're going to give you some of our picks and our thoughts on these games and what's going to go down at the end of the show, as we typically do again on Fridays. But let's get the ball rolling here, because we do have plenty to talk about with these games coming up this weekend, as well as some other big headlines around the college football world, including the transfer portal, because we're going to get there very shortly. But with it being a little bit of a different game schedule this week, with the game being on Thursday, that means that we got the first injury reports for the Thursday games last night, and that would include Alabama and Indiana. And we'll start there, where Alabama's gotten some very good news. If you're just now tuning in and you had kind of maybe unplugged from things over the Christmas holiday, then you'll be happily surprised to know that LT Overton is back for Alabama. He's been back at practice the last couple of days, and he is going to be ready to go on Thursday against Indiana. Now, if that means he'll be 100% and able to play, I guess his usual allotment of snaps, I don't know, but he will be available. He's not listed on the injury report, and so that is certainly very, very good news there for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And in addition to that, you have Kevin Riley back. He's been out for a while, so that's kind of some added depth there in the running backs room, as, of course, you've got Jam and Daniel Hill, who have kind of been the main guys, now getting Kevin Riley back, so maybe kind of view him as maybe RB3 coming back. And then, of course, A.K. Deers found himself getting some opportunities as well. So certainly good from a depth standpoint there. And if Alabama is going to find any semblance of a run game, good to have as many options available as possible. So we've heard it from the coaches this week. This is basically as healthy as Alabama's been. And, I mean, probably going back 2+ months now. Certainly since, at the very least, since the first Oklahoma game at the beginning of November, but probably healthier than even before that. So certainly a lot of good news there on the Alabama front. Excuse me, on the Indiana front for the opposition. The only big loss, or kind of maybe a surprise, is after the Ohio State game, or since the Ohio State game, they're now going to be without one of their defensive linemen in Stephen Daly. And he's second in the team with 5.5 sacks, so certainly has been a big force up front for Indiana this year defensively.
That's going to be a massive loss. He leads their team in tackles for loss. And if I remember, I think he injured himself in the celebration at the Big Ten game. So
Correct. Yes.
Kind of a dumb loss, but probably will be felt. I mean, we all thought that Drew Bobo's absence was going to be felt in the Georgia game. That didn't end up happening. So to lose your leading tackler for loss should be big, so that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and if I guess if we were weighing the scales, right, Alabama, they get back one of their big defensive linemen, and Indiana now they lose essentially their second best defensive lineman there. So that's certainly going to be a big loss for the Hoosiers on Saturday, or on Thursday.
So used to it, yeah.
Yeah, so used to it on Thursday. But again, nonetheless, Indiana's still really, really stout, one of the best defenses in the country, and it's still going to be a very tall task for Alabama to be able to go in there. I mean, again, you go back to Ohio State and how close of a game that was, and they were only able to muster 10 points, but it wasn't quite enough. So we'll see how Alabama fares again on Thursday. But again, both teams relatively healthy at this point in the season, so you like to see that. And we'll again come back to this and give you some of our thoughts on that game a little bit later on in the show and our final score predictions there. But yeah, basically, the one thing you need to know: LT Overton is back in Alabama, the healthiest they've been in quite some time. So should be a great time on Thursday out there at the Rose Bowl. But the other big news, we'll kind of head from the college football playoff to now what's going to be going on Friday, and that's not only the aftermath of the quarterfinal round of the playoff, but the transfer portal opens officially on Friday. So it's going to be a lot of fun here as we're reacting to either the end of a season for Alabama or them moving on to the semifinal rounds of the postseason, and then of course Auburn, and a lot of eyes going to be on them with the transfer portal and certain guys maybe coming over from USF or opportunities for Auburn to go in the portal and try to find guys that fit what Alex Golish likes to do. And going to have some new faces because we told you yesterday there were 25 names for Auburn that were in the portal. That has now grown up to 26 names for Auburn in the transfer portal. And of course, the big one, if you missed it somehow yesterday, is that Cam Coleman, the star wide receiver for the Auburn Tigers, he will officially enter the transfer portal on Friday once that opens up. Now, again, just like with anybody else, it doesn't mean that he's 100% gone. It does mean that Auburn, maybe it's a, it could be a negotiating ploy at times, right? It's all right, well, school A is offering me X amount of money and I'd really like to stay here at Auburn, but I'm going to need you to get closer to this number or else I'm going to go to the highest bidder. It could very well be a leverage situation, or it very well could be just hey, I've had a couple good years at Auburn. Appreciate what they've done for me and I like being here, but with a coaching change, maybe it's time to look for other pastures. I thought Pat actually brought up an interesting point yesterday. You said, we like to, say what we do about certain people, including Hugh Freeze, but who's to say that Cam Coleman didn't have a great relationship with Hugh Freeze, and ultimately that's why he's now on the way out, because say what you want about him, but that's the guy that recruited him, and that's the guy that he believed in and bought into, and now that person's gone, and it's not that dissimilar, I guess, in my opinion, to when Nick Saban retired and Caleb Downs left. I don't think Caleb Downs going to Ohio State was, his way of saying, I don't think Kalen DeBoer is a good coach, or I don't want to play for Kalen DeBoer necessarily. It was just, I came here to play for the greatest coach of all time in Nick Saban, and he's left. So I'm now going to reassess my opportunities, and I think I want to go somewhere else.
It probably kind of worked out for him.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's absolutely worked out for him. So we'll see what happens with Cam Coleman. I know there's already reports out there of some SEC teams being involved. I would just look at it like this. If I had to put out, the top 5 schools potentially, I guess, that you would say is landing spots for Cam Coleman, I would certainly think Texas would be very, very high on that list. I would think LSU would be very high up there. Texas A&M, probably another one, just with obviously the money that they put into the receiver position this year. I would think Alabama would be in the mix because we know that they were when he was being recruited. And if he wants to stay here and close to home, maybe that's an opportunity. And then I would also think that Ohio State, anytime you have a high caliber wide receiver talent like this, you would think that Ohio State would probably be in play there. So,
truth be told, this is just me and a feeling I had a feeling he was doing this no matter what.
You mean just in terms of for leverage, or?
I think he was going to go in the portal and look around at the end of the season no matter what. Whether or not he had a good relationship with Hugh Freeze, whether or not there's some friction with Alex Golish. I don't know. I just get the feeling that Cam Coleman was going to at least test the waters, if not look to leave after this year.
Yeah, and I understand, because I know a lot of people were frustrated because there were, people that covered the Auburn program had been, I guess, giving people reassurances about Cam Coleman that may or, it just looks that those turned out to not be true, right? Because the belief was that Auburn was in a good spot with him, and I mean, is like less than 24 hours before he announced he was leaving, people thought that Auburn was in a good spot, and so I think that's the hard part for a lot of people is, oh well, we thought that you were bought in and you were gonna, you were part of the Auburn family, and we were told that you were happy here, now you're not, and But again, I think for anybody that's going to have the opportunities that he would, you're doing the due diligence for your career, right? And again, if you ultimately decide that you'd like to just stay put, I'm sure Auburn would be more than happy to have you back. But I can also understand that this is probably his last year of college football, and if you want to go somewhere that's going to pay you $3 or $4 million for 1 year, and then potentially develop you into a first round draft pick, that's a really hard thing to turn down.
And not to mention, although we chide them for it a good bit, but not nearly as much as the players, this is in essence their. Uh, we see it from the coaches. We saw it from the coaches last month when all of a sudden, oh, so and so's moving here. Oh, so and so's moving here. Oh, we gave you a contract extension, and we kind of we're more or less okay with that. So this is to me the way for a lot of players to kind of get more money, just like the coaches are doing. So I don't necessarily have a problem with it.
It's just like a pro athlete that is their contract comes to an end, and the team that they're playing for offers them a deal, and they go, you know what? I'd like to see what the other potential offers are. I'm going to test free agency. It doesn't mean they can't go back and ultimately re-sign with that team. It just means I kind of want to see what the market's telling me I'm worth. And if you're a guy like Cam Coleman, the market's probably telling you you're worth a whole heck of a lot of money. And maybe it's worth, seeing what you can get and what pastures lie out there. So certainly going to have a lot of suitors there for Cam Coleman. As of last check on the On3 portal rankings, he is the #1 player overall in the portal. He was the only 5-star player they had in the portal. So again, certainly somebody that's going to command top dollar, and it'll be very fascinating to see where he ultimately ends up playing college football in 2026. But that was kind of the big transfer portal news. Again, a lot of it's going to come down on Friday, and things will happen very quickly, as we're now accustomed to, as deals and things are kind of being worked on behind the scenes. And I would expect Friday to be very, very active on the transfer portal front, on top of the fact that you're going to have 4 new teams that will be eliminated from the college football playoff. And certainly we'll probably see a lot of players from those schools start to make their announcements as well. But let's take a little bit of time, look back on what happened last night as well, because last night really was a great night. You had the Birmingham Bowl here yesterday afternoon. You had Monday Night Football going on last night in a game that started off horrible, but ended up being pretty interesting. You had SEC hoops, Alabama and Auburn both in action there. So we'll recap, tell you what was going on last night, a busy day in the sports world, as we take a look back and then continue on with our discussion. Alabama, Indiana, your score predictions, 205-834-9450. All that as we roll along here on Morning JOX. 6:18 here on your Tuesday morning. Welcome back into Morning Jocks. Conrad Van Order, John Saber here with you as we get you ready for the New Year's holiday and the quarterfinal round of the college football playoff. And we will, of course, give you our predictions for those games coming up here just a little bit later on in the program. But it is a Final Score Tuesday here on the show, and 205-834-9450. That is the number for the Courtesy GMC text line where you can chime in with your thoughts, like this listener who says Alabama will beat Indiana 31-17 with Alabama pulling away after halftime. Okay? Appreciate your score prediction there. This text says, last show of the year. Hope you'll have a great one and roll Tide. Appreciate that. Hope you have a fantastic New Year's, and hopefully you'll be saying roll Tide on Friday because Alabama will find themselves in the next round of the playoffs. Jamie chimes in. He has predictions for all the games this weekend. He's going Texas Tech over Oregon 44-41. He's going Ole Miss over Georgia 38-35. Miami over Ohio State 31-27. And Alabama 27, Indiana 24. So that would be that'd be a heck of a weekend there. So he would have Texas Tech, Ole Miss, Miami, and Alabama in the semifinals of the college football playoff. That would be a heck of a weekend nonetheless there.
Wow,
but we would we would love to hear you chime in. And I said it yesterday, I've just been kind of surprised. Not that, again, I think it's a great game, and I think any team could win any of these matchups. I truly believe that. But I've noticed a lot of people seem to be getting on the Miami train now. And I've seen a lot of people really, really talking up Miami and picking them to beat Ohio State outright. So that would be quite an upset there. And based on just the point spreads, that would be, according to Vegas at least, the biggest upset there could be over the next couple of days in the college football playoff. But quickly, do want to take you back to yesterday and a couple of things that we had going on in the world of sports. So it was the Birmingham Bowl, the J-Lab Birmingham Bowl, down at Protective Stadium. Georgia Southern knocked out App State 29-10. So it was all Georgia Southern. They were up 13-7 at halftime. Then they outscore App State 16-3 in the second half, and that was all she wrote. Had a couple of turnovers there, and they got to it was really kind of cool what they were doing with the kind of like a spin on walk-up music almost, where if you when they had an interception, for example, right, they had this giant speaker that would then go and blast like a celebration song that was basically like the equivalent of that player's walk-up song that they got to tell them before, hey, if I make a big play or I get a turnover, this is what I want you to do. And they had the nice fancy pure gold headphones out there and all that stuff. So they were having a lot of fun with it. And Georgia Southern and Coach Helton, they there finished the season 7-6. And cap it off right here in Birmingham at Protective Stadium. So hope if you were able to make it out there yesterday, you had a great time. But congratulations to Georgia Southern.
4 straight bowl wins.
4 straight wins there for Georgia Southern, and a big one there in Birmingham yesterday. You did also have Monday Night Football going on last night, and a game that went from a really, just a real stinker to actually being pretty entertaining. And I guess you give credit to the Rams for that, and also it's the Falcons, so it kind of is what it is there. But the Falcons, they go up 21-0 in this game. So you had a pick six early on by Jesse Bates. That made it 14-0. Then you had another interception thrown by Matthew Stafford late in the second quarter, and Bijan Robinson then ran for a 93-yard touchdown after that. And made it 21-0. So you thought that, the Falcons were just absolutely going to run away with it. A couple of field goals make it 24-3 about halfway through the third quarter. And then from that point on, the Rams were able to make it really, really interesting. So Matthew Stafford throws a couple of touchdowns. You had a 76-yard blocked field goal that the Rams were able to score a touchdown on there by Jared Verse. He took it back to the house. So that was very, very impressive. And then finally, it was 24-24. You had opportunities late in the game. You had the the controversial no call on the pass interference. Then you had a catch that was a catch, but then it wasn't a catch by Puka Nacua, and that ultimately comes back to bite the Rams, and the Falcons They kick a field goal with a field goal with 20 seconds left, excuse me, and they get the 27-24 win. So a pretty crazy game. All things considered, the fact the Rams were even able to tie it at 24 after being down 21-0 was impressive. But the Falcons got a game they should have won, and probably more comfortably than they did, but they find a way to get the win. So they are now 7-9. They have one game left in their season, and the Rams now 11-5, but they're safely in the playoffs anyways. You just wonder if Matthew Stafford's MVP case maybe took a little bit of a hit last night because he did finish with 3 total interceptions. But that was your Monday Night Football from last night. And then quickly, you did have some SEC hoops going on last night, namely both Alabama and Auburn. And they did what they were supposed to do against the opposition, and they absolutely smoked them. So let's start off with Auburn, because I know a lot of you probably didn't stay up for this one because it tipped off at 9 o'clock. But you missed a fun one because Auburn started off, they were up 37-6 after 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah, they kind of put it on them.
They were up 37-6. They ultimately win 106-65, so they just absolutely smoked Queens. They were up 57-21 in the first half, a little bit closer there in the second half, kind of let Queens get some points up there. But Elijah Freeman, he scores 27 to lead the way for Auburn. Keyshawn Hall, he had 18. He had 13 points very quickly in this game last night. But Overton, he gives you 23. You shoot 54% from deep if you're Auburn. They shot 15 of 28 from behind the three-point line. Just absolutely incredible offensive performance there from them last night. And so that was a nice win for Auburn as they wrap up the, I guess, pre-SEC play portion of their schedule. They're now 9-4 on the season, and they will open up SEC play this Saturday on the road against Georgia. That's going to be a noon tip-off on the SEC network, so some SEC basketball there to look forward to. And then on the other side of the state, Alabama hosting Yale, a team that Auburn's obviously familiar with after their NCAA tournament run-in a couple of years ago. But Alabama, again, they, the second half kind of lacked off defensively a little bit there and let Yale put up some points. But Alabama, they get the win 102-78. Similar to Auburn, they had a great night shooting threes, not over 50%, but they were over 40% on the night. They had 8 3-pointers in the first 10 minutes, and so they just absolutely put it on Yale. They were up 55-31 at halftime, and then they tied 47 apiece there in the second half. But Aiden Holloway, he has 26 points to lead the charge there for Alabama, and they did it without LeBaron Philon. So he's dealing with a little bit of a thigh injury there, so just kind of keeping him out before SEC play starts to be on the safer side of things there for the Crimson Tide. But, yeah, no LeBaron Philon, no London Jemison, and no Davion Hannah, and you take care of business by 24. So a nice night there, only 5 turnovers for Alabama, and that was the 5th time this year that they've now scored at least 100 points in a game.
And SEC play won't get any easier because they start off with Kentucky, 11 o'clock, straight out of game day on Saturday, followed by at Vanderbilt, then Texas.
Yeah, those are certainly going to be tough. Vanderbilt been one of the bigger surprises, I think, with just how good they've looked in the early part of the season. But Kentucky, I mean, they've certainly been a disappointment up to this point, and I know a lot of people are frustrated with kind of what they put out there, especially based on how much money they spent on their roster this year. But that's a game. It's in Coleman Coliseum. It's at 11 a.m. on Saturday. I know a lot of you probably going to be there. Alabama's been the better team. They've shown that they're the better team up to this point in the season. But once conference play starts, we'll see if Kentucky can kind of come alive a little bit. But that would certainly be a nice way to start off SEC play for both Alabama and Auburn on Saturday. Alabama, Kentucky, and then Auburn and Georgia as they will do battle there. So that's your kind of your look back at what happened yesterday as we had a jam-packed day of college and professional sports here that I know a lot of you were keeping in touch with. But we do now have to turn our attention to the New Year's Eve holiday and the New Year's Day holiday because that's when the college football playoff, the quarterfinal round is going to be going down, and it's time for our pick. So it's a Tuesday, not a Friday, but with the way that the schedule sets up, that's where we're going next. So me and Saber will give you our final thoughts, our final predictions for all of the quarterfinal rounds of the college football playoff. That's coming up next here on JOX.
Welcome back into Morning Jocks, along with Conrad Van Order. I'm John Saber. About to give you our thoughts on the CFP. Normally will be Final Score Friday, but it is our Friday, mostly. So it's tell me what's going to happen Tuesday. And I also want to tell you that flu season is here and make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. It removes up to 99% of airborne particles, including those viruses that can cause the flu, and is 100 times more effective than your standard air filters and 8 times more effective than a HEPA room filter. Find a dealer near you at Trane.com.
Thank you, Saber. It is time now for us to deliver our picks and predictions to you for the quarterfinal round of the college football playoff. And a number of you have been sending in your score predictions this morning here on the Courtesy GMC text line as well. So 205-834-9450 if you want to play along with us and send in your score predictions, and we will get to those as we move along.
We just doing CFP because, Iowa and Vanderbilt play tomorrow. Tennessee and Illinois play today. That's fine. If you don't care about the other games, if you just want to do the CFP, that's okay. If you just want to leave Nebraska and Utah out of this, that's fine.
Do you care a lot about the other games?
We're in the office pool, so I kind of have to pick some of them. But
I was about to say I care about them from that perspective.
I'm 1 point behind the leader. Haney and I are
that's
tied.
right.
So,
I forgot you are. Yeah, you do have.
So some of these do matter to me.
I was about to say, these matter maybe a little bit more.
Maybe I shouldn't. I don't want Haney to hear my pick.
That's right. There you go. You can keep those to yourself. But yes, that is a good reminder because there are some. They're intriguing bowl games. I'll give it that, right? You've got the Music City Bowl. You got Tennessee, Illinois, you mentioned. You got USC and TCU. That's going to be tonight as well.
On JOX.
Right here on JOX, that's right. And then you mentioned it, Vanderbilt and Iowa. So there is some intrigue to go around there. Hopefully the SEC just fares better and puts up a better effort than they have up to this point when all is said and done. But let's start off with the first quarterfinal game tomorrow night, 6:30 on ESPN. At AT&T Stadium there, the Cotton Bowl, Miami and Ohio State. Ohio State right now, 9.5-point favorite over the Hurricanes. The total sits at 40.5. I will say for this one, the logic for this one's tough because I understand it's like, man, okay, so if Miami can only muster 10 points against Texas A&M, then what are they going to do against Ohio State? Because I think we all agree Ohio State's defense is certainly better than Texas A&M's.
Oh, yeah.
However, I think we also understand that if Miami gets in a rhythm offensively, as good as Ohio State is, I could still see them putting up, 24, maybe 27, 28 points if things go right for them. I do have some questions now about Julian Sayin because we saw against Indiana when he has to play, tougher competition. He was able to get rattled. He got uncomfortable early on, and they were able to put pressure on him. And I think Ruben Bain, if he has a big day, could cause a lot of problems for Julian Sayin. So with all that being said, I do think Ohio State is the better team. I do think Ohio State will walk out with a victory, but with the 9.5, I do think Miami could certainly keep it within that. So I would take Miami plus 9.5. I think I'd take Ohio State by about a touchdown here in this one. I do think it'll probably be a little on the lower scoring side. So I'll take Ohio State. Let's call it 24-17.
I felt that Ohio State was going to win this game really as soon as last weekend's games kind of ended. Seeing what I saw out of Miami, it's like, okay, like this team, I don't want to say they're peaking at the right time, but this is the team that we saw early on at the beginning of the season, not the ones that kind of stumbled midway through the season and honestly were probably playing with their food. I think that team will show up, but I still think Ohio State will have enough to get past them because I don't know what happened against Indiana. Maybe they just thought they were better than them and didn't need to show up. But Ohio State, for whatever reason, under Ryan Day, whenever they have that loss, they just seem to turn it on and don't turn it off until the lights go off. So I expect Ohio State to win the game. I don't think that they cover that, though. I don't even see this being a majorly high-scoring game. I could see it being something like around a 21-13 kind of thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 14-13 at half to where, okay, it's anyone's kind of game, and Ohio State pulls away to where, oh, okay, yeah, Ohio State put it on them. Well, not really. It was kind of back and forth, and it just looked like, not honestly, not unlike Miami and Texas A&M. Like, it was a back and forth game, and Miami got one late and really stopped it from Texas A&M. But if you just look at it like, okay, Miami got a good win, and if you look at this when you wake up, because let's be honest, how many of us are actually going to see the ball drop on New Year's Eve night? If you wake up not seeing the end of the game and just see that Ohio State won by 10, 11, 12, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I do think ultimately it would be a close game, but the score may not show it. But I do think Miami covers. In my head, it's somewhere around a 17-13, a 21-17, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, Ohio State wins, not necessarily comfortably, but I do think Miami covers. Under's probably in play too.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we're kind of thinking the same thing there. So me and Saber, we both like Miami to cover, but we do think Ohio State ultimately will be the victors there in the Cotton Bowl Classic. Again, that's tomorrow night at 6:30 on ESPN. All right, coming up on Thursday, you've got a trio of games starting at 11 a.m. Oregon and Texas Tech there from the Orange Bowl in Miami. Oregon, a 2.5-point favorite going into this one. Texas Tech, the team that had the bye and the extra week of rest, though. And again, that's something to keep in mind with this is last year, all 4 teams that got a bye, they lost their first game. So maybe we'll see if that trend continues or not this season. But this one's tough for me, man, because I really I like Oregon. I really, really do. And I think that Dante Moore has been really, really impressive. I know they had the one loss to Indiana, but you can't really knock them too much against that. But all Oregon's done outside of that is take care of business. However, I do think it's fair to maybe have some concerns after what JMU was able to do, putting up points. And I know it was a game where, Oregon didn't really have to try. They knew they could just roll the ball out there and win. But I do wonder now going up against a Texas Tech team that's had a little bit extra rest, a really, really good defense. I think it'll be a tough challenge for Oregon. To me, this is just my gut feeling. This feels like a game where that extra rest might not be great for Texas Tech. I feel like this could benefit Oregon. They're going to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because they didn't perform the way they wanted to against James Madison. I just think that all sets up for a really competitive game, but you're telling me I just need Oregon by a field goal. So I'm going to go the Ducks. I think they get a win pretty comfortably in this one over Texas Tech. I really do. For some reason, I just feel like the rest is going to be hard for Texas Tech to overcome.
This might be the easiest one on the board. I think Oregon wins. Oregon wins convincingly. Texas Tech hasn't been here. Oregon has been here, and they got embarrassed last year. So they know what it takes. Now, granted, they don't have nearly as much rest, which I do think helps them as well because Greg has always said when you're playing and you're rolling, you don't want the time off. You want to keep going. Yeah, you would maybe like the time to rest and get better, but Oregon, surprisingly, is fairly healthy right now and getting a good number of people back that they really kind of were expecting. And honestly, I think they knew that they could get by James Madison without some of those players.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon is just a field goal. Yeah, that's easy money. Give me Oregon. Give me Oregon. I don't want to say big, like 10 to 14 points.
I was about to say like 10 points.
Yeah, it's not like a major route, but I just think Oregon's defensive front is going to be way too much for Texas Tech to handle. I think they win something like 28-17.
Yeah, I think Oregon, again, it feels like it really benefited them having that week last week. And to win a playoff game and be able to go into the next round and go, wow, we really kind of played like crap at times in that first game. I think that does a lot for you mentally. So, yeah, we both like Oregon in that one. I will save Alabama for last. So at 7 o'clock tomorrow or on Thursday night, you're going to have Ole Miss and Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. That's going to be there in New Orleans. So we saw this game earlier in the season. Ole Miss kind of outplayed Georgia in a lot of ways for the first 3 quarters. Georgia, a big fourth quarter, ultimately is what gets them the win. They're now favored by 6.5. The over-under is at 55.5. And this one's pretty simple for me. I would love to see Ole Miss win again because I think the further they can go without Lane Kiffin, the funnier that story gets. I just look at it like this. I think these teams were very evenly matched, but in the regular season, at the end of the day, what was it that pulled them through? It was Kirby Smart, his ability to make adjustments, and his ability to coach in the fourth quarter. And now you're telling me that Pete Golding's going to be put in that spot. I know the Tulane game, they looked good and there wasn't a big drop-off. it's just hard for me in these spots, man. Kirby's really, really good. I know that this happened last year where they got the bye and then they lost to Notre Dame, but I'm rolling with Kirby and Georgia. That just seems like the easy pick. I'll take them by a touchdown right now.
I know I said before that the Oregon one might be. This Georgia one, to me, definitely is. Not because that Georgia is a substantially better team. It's just that you've got to trust Kirby Smart in a coaching situation like this.
Yep.
They had about the month off last year, and I don't say they got embarrassed, but they lost a game that no one really kind of expected them to lose.
To be fair, they were also starting a quarterback for the first time.
Yes. But he had also had some time, and they had a good bit of confidence in him.
Fair.
And so Kirby's also the master at getting those players revenge-minded but not focused on revenge. They already beat the team. They know that they're capable of it. Do you remember how many times Georgia punted in this game? That'd be 0.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to guess 2.
No. There were 2 total punts in that game.
But they were
both were by
Miss.
Ole Miss. Both were in the fourth quarter. To Ole Miss's credit, the first, I think they had 8, 9, however many drives. First 5, they scored touchdowns. To their credit. But when it mattered most in the fourth quarter, Georgia got those stops. Ole Miss did not, and that was the turning point in that game. I think Trinidad Chambliss can make it a little interesting with his legs because that's something that Kirby defenses are susceptible to. But if I'm wrong, I'm going to be wrong trusting Kirby Smart in a spot like this than hoping that a coach that's 1-0 can actually find lightning in a bottle and actually upset this Georgia squad. So give me Georgia. I think they win convincingly. I think they win like 35-17. I think they win rather easily.
Okay. So there you go. Well, that's the first 3 games. Me and Saber are in agreement there. We both like Ohio State to take down Miami in a close one. We both think Oregon takes down Texas Tech pretty comfortably. And then we both like Georgia and Kirby Smart to get the better end of Ole Miss yet again. But we still have Alabama, Indiana. We have to give you our final predictions there. And we also want to hear from you. Keep your final scores rolling in 205-834-9450. We read those and give you our thoughts, our final thoughts. Alabama and Indiana next on JOX. 6:48 here on your Tuesday morning. Appreciate you tuning in to Morning JOX. Conrad Van Order, John Saber here with you. About to give you our prediction for Alabama versus Indiana in the Rose Bowl. Did want to pass this on. I just saw this, the news coming out earlier this morning. But Chip Kelly, the former Oregon head coach, Eagles head coach, Ohio State offensive coordinator last year when they won the national championship. He was with the Raiders this year, got fired a few weeks back. The Raiders have been pretty abysmal this year. And he now finds himself back in the college football ranks, Saber, as he's now going to be the new offensive coordinator for Northwestern.
Whew, okay, he's taking the anti-Lane Kiffin approach to go from OC at Ohio State to Las Vegas Raiders, stepping up, and then all of a sudden Northwestern.
Just reminds you how, I guess, fickle the coaching business can be, because this guy, I mean, what, 10 years ago, 15 years ago was the hottest name in coaching, I mean, across professional and college football, and now he finds himself as the Northwestern offensive coordinator.
Well,
little surprising.
A little over a calendar year ago was leading the Ohio State offense to a championship. So it's like, okay, and it's understandable, even without his previous NFL experience, understandably why he got the Las Vegas Raiders. It's like, oh, okay, like, yeah, he can call an offense. We know that. And, okay, it just wasn't the greatest. And, well, to be fair, maybe he hadn't been the greatest under Pete Carroll either. But if one thing, it's if all he needs to do is just call offense, he's shown that it's not unlike Lane Kiffin's. If that's all I need to do, I got it. Boom. Yeah.
I was about to say, I think it's a good hire for Northwestern. Just certainly not what I had on my bingo card, but Chip Kelly there will be the OC for Northwestern. All right, let's get you our final thoughts on Alabama and Indiana. That game's at 3 o'clock on Thursday on ESPN, the Rose Bowl out in Pasadena. Indiana, a touchdown favorite in this one as it stands right now. The total sitting around 48.5 for this matchup. Based on the forecast, there is the expectation that there will be rain at points throughout the game. I believe it's about a 90% chance of rain during the game at some point there from the Rose Bowl, and that certainly doesn't seem like it would help Alabama because they have struggled mightily to run the football. I will say this going into it. I said this yesterday. Indiana has proven to this point they're the better team than Alabama. They've been more consistent than Alabama has. But that doesn't ultimately mean that they're guaranteed to win the game. It doesn't mean Alabama doesn't deserve to be on the same field as them. It just means that there's a reason Indiana is favored by a touchdown over Alabama in this matchup. And again, I think that what works in Alabama's favor right now is you have, for the first time in a long time, a team that has a chip on their shoulder that, whether you think it's bogus or not, they are convinced that the world is against them and that everybody is doubting them. And if you continue to carry the momentum from what happened the final 3 quarters of that Oklahoma game into this one, I think Alabama absolutely has a chance to win this football game. I think Ty Simpson has shown that in tough moments and against the toughest competition, that he has more often than not been able to come through for Alabama. And if you get the Ty Simpson you saw against Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago, where he was just letting it rip and he was being protected, then again, Alabama is going to have every single chance to win this football game. With all that being said, though, I can't turn away from the fact that Indiana's been the better team. They've been battle-tested. They took down Ohio State, who, in my opinion, was the best team in the country going into the Big Ten championship game. Maybe the rest doesn't do them any favors, and maybe it is a situation where the more battle-tested team ultimately pulls through. But for the first time all year, I think it's been a great run for Alabama. I think they're going to give them a heck of a fight. I do think Indiana's the better team, though, and ultimately I'm going to take Indiana. I will take them to win this game 24-20. I think maybe Alabama kicks a late field goal to make it a close game and has a chance late. But I think the Indiana defense is a little too good. They just don't make mistakes, and Alabama makes mistakes. And I think at the end of the day, Alabama will make one mistake too many, and Indiana will move on, and Alabama will be sent home. What about you, Saber? Where are you?
Wow, Crimson Conrad going against the Crimson. Although I guess they're Crimson too, but whatever. That's eerily similar to how I have this game. I think Alabama showed us not only last week against Oklahoma, or last time against Oklahoma, but also in the Georgia game as well as that 4-game midseason run, what this team is truly capable of. I know that they can beat this Indiana team. I just don't think that they will. Looking back on it, Oklahoma was a highly flawed team, and they were a flawed team the first time they played Alabama, but found a way to get the win. Oh, go figure. If you turn the ball over a lot, typically you find ways to lose that game, which Alabama did. Alabama didn't turn the ball over nearly as much, and sure enough, they won. Indiana's a team that not only you have to beat you, like you have to take it from them. They're not going to make those mistakes. Now, granted, I know they played in some elements, but they haven't really played in the allegedly flooding rain that we're probably going to see in this one. So maybe they may be a little bit more prone to mistakes, which is why I think Alabama covers the 6-ish, whatever, points. I just think that as good as Alabama is, Indiana's shown that they very well might be the team to beat. And they beat the two teams to beat in these playoffs, or at least in the Big Ten. I think Indiana gets it. I think Alabama makes it close. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not unlike the Penn State game in that Alabama has the lead under 5 minutes and Indiana finds a way to go and get the win. I think Tide fans are going to be heartbroken. I don't think it's a massive blowout like Clemson and Trevor Lawrence. I think it's more like Clemson and Deshaun Watson that is back and forth, but ultimately Indiana gets it done.
Well, there you go. Me and Saber, we both like Alabama to keep it close, but we think Indiana ultimately pulls it off over the Tide. A lot of you more confident, though. Eric from Sneed chimes in, Alabama will beat Indiana by 10. Another one says, Bama wins outright, Oregon covers, Georgia covers, and Miami covers. All right.
Wow.
Appreciate the text there. Well, that does it for us. We're back Friday. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you in 2026. Mac and Cube, those guys, they're up next.